fantasy analyst Mitchell Renz here on the program. Mitchell, it's been a long time for you, my man. Welcome.
What's up, buddy? How's it going? I'm excited to be on here, excited to talk fantasy football. We're getting right into that time of the year where the real fantasy freaks and geeks start to come out, and this is the best time of the year for me.
And you're a big-time FanDuel fan as well, so it's great that they're sponsoring the show.
Oh, I was ready and super psyched when I heard that FanDuel was sponsoring the show. The fact that I get to talk about fantasy football and FanDuel, if you're not playing on FanDuel, I don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. We'll talk about FanDuel as we go through these rankings here, Mitch, because you have your top 5 fantasy running backs. We'll start things off with number 5. The Offensive Rookie of the Year, Alvin Kamara, Mitch. He's an electric player, and with Mark Ingram out those first 4 games, talk about more touches for Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints came out and they said that they don't know if they're going to give him more touches, but Cam, I don't know if he necessarily needs them. Remember when Jamal Charles was just an absolute fantasy stud? Well, I think that's what we're going to get with a guy like Alvin Kamara. I mean, he didn't have a single game last year where he had over 20 touches, and he didn't have a single game where he had more than 13 carries. But when you average 6.1 yards per carry and you're on an amazing offense, that's going to lead to a lot of fantasy points. He led all running backs in receiving yards last year with 826. This guy is super electric. And Mark Ingram's been in Sean Payton's doghouse before, and if that continues, a breakout season, even bigger, could be happening for Kamara, who also scored 14 total touchdowns last year.
Now, FanDuel does a half PPR type of format here, Mitch.
Yes, sir.
And so Kamara can certainly receive the football out of the backfield with the best of them out there. So great value in FanDuel, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to get a guy who can catch the ball, and then when you can break the big plays, that's the kind of guy who's going to get you a heavy, paycheck when it comes to FanDuel, because Kamara has those big weeks. And when he has that big week, you're going to be making a lot of money.
All right, so Alvin Kamara with a big-time year back in 2017. Let's go to number 4. This guy we didn't really see much of. In fact, it was just a few snaps, honestly, in Week 1. David Johnson, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. So with that, Mitch, we have 2016 stats here, thanks to FanDuel. David Johnson, when healthy, he's a top 5 running back, easy, Mitch, like in fantasy and reality.
Oh, you could make the argument he's the best, most talented running back in the league when he's completely healthy. So last year, 1 game, 11 carries, 23 yards, but 6 catches for 67 yards, and you say, okay, he's going to get involved in the offense. Let's not forget, Cam, how amazing he was in 2016. 1,239 yards, 16 touchdowns, plus 80 catches for 879 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's 2,100 yards and 20 touchdowns. From a FanDuel standpoint, Cam, that's 367 FanDuel points. You remember how good Todd Gurley was last year?
He was great.
Todd Gurley didn't score as many points in 2017 as David Johnson did in 2016. Let's not sleep on a guy like David Johnson, because this dude is legit.
The Cardinals also made some improvements to that offensive line as well. They bring in Justin Pugh. They have Mike Iupati coming back, so we can't ignore that. And by the way, this is weird to say, but the arm threat of Sam Bradford might actually soften up the box a little bit, because Sam Bradford's a good quarterback when he's playing.
But he's also a guy I think who could check it down to a guy like David Johnson, who he had 80 catches, David Johnson. There's no reason why on that team, again, he couldn't have another 80 catches.
Okay, all right. So David Johnson's there at number 4. Let's get to number 3 here on the list. Zeke, will he be eaten this year, Mitch?
I think he's going to be eaten a lot, and I think it's hard to argue that he's not going to be eating so much. So, Zeke, in only 10 games last year, Cam, right? This is a guy who averaged 19.4 FanDuel points per game. And over the last 2 years, he's averaged 19.87 FanDuel points per game. I understand he's missed 6 games last year, but Zeke has just been an absolute monster when he's played, right? So, last season, he averaged 98.3 rushing yards per game. That was the most in the NFL. The guy who was in second, Todd Gurley, who you're going to hear later, averaged 87 rushing yards per game, okay? That's a 16-game pace, Cam, for 1,573 yards. Kareem Hunt led the NFL last year in rushing with only 1,327 yards. So Zeke, when he's playing, he's eating, and the Cowboys are going to feed him. And here's another stat that just absolutely blows my mind. Ezekiel Elliott, Cam, has played in 25 career games. Do you know how many touchdowns he has?
20?
25.
Wow.
He has 22 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns. This guy, when he plays, scores touchdowns. They're going to feed him the ball. They just got rid of Dez and Witten. That could mean even more receptions for a guy like Zeke. And Dak Prescott's 2 longest passing touchdowns, both to Zeke. Zeke can do it all.
I mean, you're not going to be throwing the football to Deontay Thompson, Allen Hurns, Cole Beasley, Mitch. You're going to be running the rock with Zeke.
Oh, and I hope they're going to run the rock a ton. I mean, this was a guy who scored 190 fantasy point or FanDuel points last year. in 10 games. Like when he plays, he is a no doubt top 3 running back. I tweeted out, humble plug right here for me, Mitchell Renz 365, that Zeke, don't sleep on him as being the #1 running back in fantasy football. In standard leagues for FanDuel, you don't sleep on this guy because he is, you could argue, the most talented running back in the NFL.
When you talk fantasy football, Mitch, you got to talk about opportunity. And the depth chart for the Dallas Cowboys is very thin. So after Zeke, there's nobody. So with Zeke getting all the carries, let's talk about that offensive line, too. Zach Martin just got paid. He's the best guard in the NFL. You got Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith on that left side as well. You're not throwing the football at all. Your game plan is to run the rock. It's all there. Mitch, it's going to be interesting to see to track here how the fantasy mock drafts go throughout the summer. Will Zeke be the top running back off the board?
I think he's just going to be, for me, he's a no doubt top 3 pick right now in the draft. And I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, when you just look at the overall team, I think Dak Prescott even kind of gets slept on a little bit. Dak Prescott, when Ezekiel Elliott has played, and when he played last year, the first 8 weeks of the season, was a top 5 quarterback. So I think Dak's a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on, but Zeke, I'm telling you, he's going to be eating a lot, and I hope I could actually have an eating competition with Zeke. That'd be dope.
We'll continue to flash the comments at the bottom of your screen, so be sure to hit us up. I have a feeling, Mitch, you're going to get called out by one representative of Raider Nation that Marshawn Lynch should be inside the top 5. I think that's my guy Mike chiming in. Mitch, Marshawn Lynch, is he there?
Top 5? No, but Marshawn was really good. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry the last final 5 weeks of the season last year. 10 short of leading the league in the last 5 weeks. So I like Marshawn. Hey, I cover the Raiders and the Raiders Report. Check out our new YouTube channel, Raiders Report.
There's Mike.
Oh, Mike, what up, man? Yeah. I like Marshawn, but he's not in this list. Sorry, homie.
Yeah, he's not inside the top 2. I'll give you some love, though, Mike. I have the Raiders as a breakout team in 2018. Good offensive line, like Derek Carr a lot, like the wide receivers, too. So shout out to you, my friend. Let's go to number 2 here, Mitch. LeVeon Bell. And first of all, he's got to figure out the contract situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been holding out. He's not going to be at training camp most likely. So there is the concern for me, Mitch, especially if I'm playing FanDuel in week 1 and 2, respectively. He could be a little rusty.
Well, he wasn't rusty last year, and he basically sat out the entire offseason. And when you're just as talented as Le'Veon Bell and you're on a team like the Steelers, I don't know how he's not just a slam dunk pick. So we talk about the term cowbell running back. It's a Le'Veon Bell. Like, Le'Veon Bell last year, 406 touches. It was the most in the NFL. No other running back had over 350. So then, okay, this guy's going to be getting that work. He had the second most FanDuel points last year with 299. And then over the last 2 years, Cam, he's averaged 21.3 FanDuel points per game. Over the last 2 years, he has scored 661 FanDuel points, okay?
A lot of money, a lot of cash.
Yeah, a lot of cash. Next closest guy, Todd Gurley, with only 541. Then it's LaShawn McCoy with 518, and then Devonta Freeman, 499. The last 2 years, Le'Veon Bell has just been an absolute slam dunk guy for FanDuel, fantasy football. And when you just talk about a guy who just can catch the ball, can run the ball, yeah, he is more than just a running back. He is just an absolute freak, and I don't blame him for wanting to get paid because this dude is special.
All right, so Le'Veon Bell hoping for a contract extension. He's at number 2 on the list here for Mitchell Renz's top 5 fantasy football running backs. All right, folks, let's get to number 1 on the list, Todd Gurley. Mitchell, your top running back.
Yeah, and Todd Gurley was an absolute stud last year. It's the reason why he won Offensive Player of the Year, and he scored 351 FanDuel points, and he sat out Week 17. So, like, if he would have played Week 17 when he was absolutely balling out, yeah, he probably would have obviously scored more. He led the NFL in total touchdowns last year with 19, Cam. I said before, Alvin Kamara scored 14. Well, one of those was special teams. So just in terms of on-the-field play, 13 touchdowns for Kamara. And then you look at a guy like Gurley who had 19. But the reason why Gurley is my number 1 running back is just because of how absolutely dominant he was down the stretch of the season last year. And I mean, the Rams, I think, got better on defense. They're probably going to run the ball even more. And they got better on offense, I think, too. So for me, Todd Gurley is just an absolute monster.
The Rams got better everywhere, Mitch.
Yeah.
Honestly. They went wild in the free agency period, had a solid draft as well. Todd Gurley is going to be sneakily valuable in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield as well, I think.
Oh, yeah, but the reason why Todd Gurley, I think, should be the number 1 running back for fantasy football this year was the way he finished the season. So, Cam, listen to these numbers.
So it's momentum. We're talking momentum.
Momentum with the way they finished the season, or his final 6 games of the season. That's including the playoff game and the last 5 weeks that he played. 106 carries, 615 yards, plus 30 catches, 373 yards, and he had 8 touchdowns, okay? If you take those numbers from a full 16-game season, that's 2,635 total yards and 21 touchdowns. The most total yards ever in a season is Chris Johnson with 2,509.
Yeah.
Like, that's how good Gurley was.
Production. You got to love it. All right, folks, it's time for you to weigh in our FanDuel reaction poll. Who's the best fantasy football running back for the 2018 season? Is it Todd Gurley, LeVeon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott? Give us a like, laughing face, and heart respectively. Mitch, obviously you're throwing up your thumb.
Yeah, I'm giving my thumb up here for Gurley. Gurley's my dude. He's giving me a few retweets on Twitter, and he's an absolute stud, so I love me some Todd Gurley.
You know what, Mitch? I'm going to jump on with you. I think Todd Gurley will be the best running back in fantasy football in 2018. I'm drinking the LA Rams Kool-Aid. I think they will be a legit threat to make it to the Super Bowl. And in terms of fantasy football, good offensive line, John Sullivan there at center, Whitworth at left tackle. It's all there for the LA Rams to be really successful in reality and fantasy as well, my friend. All right, folks, you guys have been watching the Cam Rogers Show presented by FanDuel. That's Mitchell Renz. Hit him up, Mitchell Renz 365. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Don't worry, guys. I'll be back here Monday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Might have this guy as well. So we'll see you then.